Okay. Well, I guess we can start. So, thanks you guys for coming and taking time from probably all of your busy schedules, I imagine. So, my name is David Brooks, and I teach downtown at ISEP. And for those of you that don't know, ISEP stands for International Student Entry Program. So, our job is to teach students English language skills in order to get them ready to succeed in their follow-up programs in BCIT. And the project, part of the presentation, we'll be talking about a project that's related to getting our students prepared for the follow-up programs. So, all right, well, collaboration. I thought that we could start out by just looking at this. This is actually on Commercial Drive. The other day, I went to my favorite coffee shop, and I noticed there's a poster about launch party collaboration. And I have no idea what this launch party is about, but it's something going on about collaboration. And it seems to be, it's going on, right? It's been around for a long time. I went in the record store on the same street. There's a collaboration with the Modern Jazz Quartet and this Latin musician. So it's all around us, it's important, and it's happening here, also at BCIT. So I thought what we could do is, part of what I wanted to do in this session is have you guys from time to time break into little groups and do some discussion. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is what comes to your mind when you hear the word collaboration. Shout out an idea. What do you think of when you hear this?
Two or more people working towards a common goal.
Two or more people working towards a common goal. Okay, how does that sound for this? Teamwork. Teamwork. And?
Teamwork gone wrong.
This is a preview of what's coming up. Part of what's coming up. And what do you guys think? Anything else?
Getting things done and getting more done, and you can introduce it.
Okay, so some of what you guys are saying kind of looks like that, you know, teamwork, you know, people are happy, you know, get these kids together very smoothly, and so on. However, is that the real world collaboration? Sometimes, right? For those, when we're lucky, but I think maybe in the real world it looks something more like this, where you've got all these people doing their jobs, and then you've got these sort of brave souls that are leaping out into the unknown at times. Not quite sure what they're doing, where they're going, they're figuring out as they go, and sometimes it works out and people get together and we achieve mutual goals. So I think part of what I want to talk about today is understanding what the collaboration process involves. That it's not always just smooth like that. And you know, worthwhile goals take some effort, and it's good that we understand that, and that can affect how we feel about doing our collaboration, and it can affect whether a project finishes or goes on. So, all right. Let's see. Okay. Actually, I thought maybe what I can do is share just very briefly a couple of collaboration experiences that I've had in the past. Not at BCIT, I'll talk about that later. In Japan. So the first time I was a teacher was in Japan from 91 to 94, a program called the JET program. So the idea of that program is that a foreign teacher and a Japanese teacher will work together, collaborate, and create hopefully good teaching for the students. And so I would have to say that was a part of everything that you guys were saying about what collaboration is. Largely depending on who the teacher was and how comfortable they were doing it, whether they even wanted to collaborate. And it could be difficult sometimes. However, I do think we were working towards a good goal. Didn't always have good results, but sometimes it did. Another project I worked on was in the Middle East in Qatar. And that project involved, now it was totally different than the Japanese experience. So in that project, I was working in a banking program, doing the English part of it. And there was a lot of support for that program from the institution. Of course, there was a lot of oil money, which makes a difference, right? Money makes a difference in terms of is it available to provide the time and the resources and so on that's needed. We were very fortunate that we had kind of a perfect storm of some excellent people that I was working with, and also the support from the institution. So we ended up meeting with some various banking people in the industry, collaborating with them. What are the needs? And we were training students to become tellers. And we actually ended up creating a textbook for the class and creating an actual banking room with a program that was written to do actual banking transactions. It was pretty impressive what they made. And we had like our own little money and everything. And that was a successful collaboration project, but there was a lot of support to do it. So, all right, well, let's move on. So collaboration, what about BCIT? It's a goal for the learning teaching framework, and these are a couple of things that I took from the framework. Definitely talking about collaboration, right? It looks like collaboration to me. So, students, instructors, and staff, we're part of a common learning community. We're all achieving the same goals, hopefully, and we're working towards the same goals. And then the next point here is that there is an interconnectedness between disciplines, between departments, right? So BCIT has recognized this, and I imagine you guys will become here today because you are interested in being a part of that and doing that within BCIT. There's good reasons to collaborate pedagogically, and I'm going to be focusing mainly on a language program, in this case ISAP, that prepares students to succeed in their follow-up programs, which is called FEP for now on. And so between a language program and a follow-up program, such as engineering or whatever the case may be, computing. So just keep that in mind as I show this one in terms of pedagogy. It's seen as the same as research. So we shouldn't be thinking that we are isolated and doing my own thing completely. We can learn from each other. Our work as teachers can be grounded in the work of others, and it should be openly shared. And I just wanted to say something about an experience I had as our program was trying to be more connected with the follow-up programs. One of the things that we did was go and visit some of the classrooms. So one classroom I visited, two classrooms in the Fish and Wildlife Resources, is that what it's called? Fish and Wildlife Resources. And it was James Scribner's class and Joa and Anderchuk. And those classes changed me as a teacher. They truly did. And a couple of things that I got from observing those classes, and this is where I'm saying this is very important, we can learn from each other. One was that they were very focused and laser-like in their activities. So they knew exactly what they were going to do. They would move right on to the next activity, and they made sure that the students were all very much on task. So they would ask very specific questions. They would walk around. And I realized that in our program, we have a 7-week program. That is so important for us to do, for myself to do as a teacher to be. This is exactly what we want to accomplish, and like a laser, focus and make sure we get it done and that the students are on task. And I've incorporated that into my teaching. Another one was visiting the Trades and Access program, Jesse Darnell. And I asked Jesse, I said, if you could say one thing to me in terms of what our students need. And his response was that they need to learn how to find information on their own when they need it, independently. And he gave examples, ask the teacher, ask your classmate, check a manual, go online. And I started to incorporate that in the class I was teaching in our high-level writing class. Making students be more independent and sort of holding them accountable to be more independent and to demonstrate that. So there are good pedagogical reasons. In terms of the specific language learning and follow-up programs, there's research that's been done. This is just a little bit of lots more research where doing that collaboration between a language teacher and a follow-up program instructors and incorporating some of the follow-up program content in the language programs actually leads to greater success for students in these areas mentioned: motivation, language abilities, and their follow-up program success. Okay. Good. Let's go on. There's also benefits for teaching. So it could clarify for the follow-up courses, they're content experts, but they may not be aware of what are the genres of writing, for example, that their students are doing. What are the specific kinds of language skills? And conversely, it can clarify the content and genre requirements that our language students are going into. So it's kind of like, let's not be in silos, but sort of come together. How can we help each other? and there's very practical things. So this is my experience. You guys would have maybe different collaboration types of experiences or goals, and we'll be, I'll be asking you guys to share some of those in a while. Okay, so let's move on. So my project that I got a grant for, a learning teaching framework grant, was to build an online course for students. This had come out of actually Andrea had been part of a survey that was done with students, international students in their follow-up programs. And some of the students said they were lacking in some of the skills, specifically vocabulary. And so started to think, okay, maybe there needs to be a bridging course for students. I did an initial talking with the computing department heads, and they said, yes, this is a need. A couple of instructors said, yes, that is a need. So, okay, let's collaborate and build this online course.
Could that computer be replaced by any program?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
or
think
did you
so.
tailor that course in particular for that particular program?
I mean, the reason we chose that because it's within the same school, BICEP, so we're within SOCAS. So that was, and also several classes were downtown. But I think the principles, could apply to anything, right? Or even to other, like, program to program in learning collaboration. Yeah. So hopefully the principles can apply, right? Yeah. So the goal is to build this course, this online course. I needed expertise. I'm not a computing guy. Like, I am so not a computing guy. I learned that when I got the Java textbook, I was like, what? Oops.
Computer hurt you.
That's funny. Did you get that? Okay. So, just in the image.
It takes a while.
What does it?
It's normal.
Okay. Right, that was funny. So anyway, so I needed the expertise. Now, as I was saying, I knew that as soon as I looked at the Java course book, I was, is this English? What's this? Okay, so I also needed student data from the international students who were in their follow-up programs to find out what were the gaps in their knowledge. So where were they struggling, right? With language, with instructions, with group work, what? So, proceeding on my merry way, I stepped out into the unknown, and it was an unknown thing. I had collaborated in the past, but not this kind of thing. And I had willing parties, and I can't say enough. So I will go on to talk about the difficulties in the project, but I can't say enough about the computing instructors that I worked with. Chris Thompson was so, he gave so much of his time, he was so passionate, and yet we did run into some difficulties that I'll talk about later. The other instructors were Rob and Zena, did I pronounce that right? Those of you that know her, so Zena. And they were so generous with their time and they're willing. The point is that people are willing. However, keep that in mind. Okay. So there were some constraints, and I'm going to talk about those after. But what I would like you guys to do now is to get back into your groups, and on your tables, I'd like you to share past or current collaboration projects you've done, and if you want to share outside of BCIT, that's okay, because collaboration principles can apply in a lot of places, from other experiences, I mean, or within BCIT. Challenges or successes, I think that we can learn as much from our challenges as from our successes, right? And then the other thing, maybe you didn't have that to share, but you could also share current collaboration ideas or needs for your department. So maybe we can take about 10 minutes or so for this. It would be really great for you guys to share your ideas. And scheduling the class observations of the computer instructors was a real challenge. It's like, okay, you have a class here, okay, I have a class here, you have a class here, it's hard. And then the follow-up students, Canadian students, international students who were doing computing, their motivation to give feedback, it's a course I was going to build that they would have been long gone probably by the time it got built, or at least they would be beyond their first year. And the course would be for or first term. The course would be for first term students. to help them to learn some of the computing concepts, vocabulary, and so on. I didn't get back very many surveys from the students. The other one was just the computing instructors' time to give feedback. So I really was reliant on them to say like, okay, what are your students struggling with? I got a little bit, but let me tell you about one email I got from one instructor. We had been trying to schedule a meeting together to discuss the students' needs. He sent me one email and said, I'm sorry I have to cancel our meeting. I have 317 emails I have to respond to from students. And these were all like little computing project homework assignments. I said, I was okay, I understand. So that was a real challenge. And also the structures to enable, this is kind of getting to what Adrian was saying, to enable collaboration. I had a grant, and nothing against grants, and I'm glad that they're here at BCIT. However, I see them as like a kind of short-term or for ideas, but not for ongoing collaboration that's going to go on for a term or several terms, or even a year or several years. So there are these things available to regular faculty, not yet for PTS, hopefully in the future. So for example, release time, PD time, and 1 month free of teaching. So I was kind of doing a project, and I think in a sense it was misguided in terms of the structures weren't in place to allow this collaboration to go on, or there probably had to be a little bit more groundwork done in order to find out what exactly was needed for this to succeed, for me and the computing instructors to have time and so on. But it was a good learning experience. So just to move on here, what happened with the project was that it was canceled. The idea to build a course, at least at this point, I shouldn't say canceled, maybe postponed, because I wasn't able to get the data and the information I needed in order to build a course that I thought would be valuable. Because I think you need to do a good needs assessment to build something that the students really need, not just to kind of wing it and guess. So what happened was I changed the direction of the project, and fortunately the Learning Teaching Center accepted the change. And I decided to look at do some research on what's going on in other institutions, especially in language programs, trying to collaborate with follow-up programs. And I found out some interesting stuff. And this is one of the key things I found out is that instead of getting upset, and actually I was kind of like a little bit upset at first because this is, man, I was probably gonna make my name at BCIT too. And it's like, it just wasn't working out. So I did feel kind of bummed out for a while. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, like, we've got to figure out, like, what's the natural processes? And actually, Adriana is going to be talking about the change process, or in September, right? In September, it's a change process, and sometimes you're doing collaboration, right? You're moving out of your comfort zone into kind of the unknown. And there are stages of collaboration. So this research that was done was a guy who, he studied a school in Taiwan, high school, and this is where teachers from different subject areas were working together, collaborating, and he analyzed their conversations when they were collaborating, and it's quite interesting. And as a result, he realized there were 5 stages that he saw that these teachers went through, from a low level of collaboration, low motivation, low involvement, to a quite high level of collaboration and interconnectedness. And that's not to say that every collaboration project has to reach that high, very close interconnection. Some of them may be just a one-off thing, right? But these are the stages that he noticed. First was kind of a pseudo-compliance, passive resistance, silo effect, which I've heard used sometimes at BCIT. And there's good reasons for that. It's because people are very busy, and it's like we've got our own things to do, and it's like all that I can do to do my stuff. But that's why I have so much respect for those computing instructors that invited me into their class and tried to go the extra mile, because they were already swamped in their own. But there may be no buy-in at first, or little time invested, maybe not even an awareness that collaboration should be done, or that it could help their program or another program. And then moving on, another stage is he calls compliance, where there's good intent, initial effort, maybe limited understanding of the implications. I think that was kind of the stage I was at with the computing, is that, especially in terms of time, it's like, whoa, it's going to take how much time? I just don't have that time. And then moving on to what he calls accommodation, there's an intent to try to do it, okay? Trying to practically do it. The collaboration dynamic is there's a willingness to experiment. There might be not so much knowledge of the theoretical implications on that, at that point. For example, change of teaching methods, changes in the curriculum in terms of deeper collaboration. Moving on to what he calls convergence. So this is where collaboration is starting to become normalized. It's starting to become a regular thing. Teachers are learning from each other and they're actually incorporating each other's practices, growing respect and trust. And then finally, the highest stage that he talks about is teachers are really working together to quite a high degree. Trust is growing, they're solving problems together, conflict management. And also, importantly, there's reasons for the collaboration. Like we want to do it because we see that it pays off. So the collaboration is normalized. It's becoming seen as the preferred method. And this is the author Davison. If you want to look at that, just yep.
Oh, no, it's just good. So the author is Davison. That's what I was gonna ask.
Yes, that is. And actually, if I could have put this PowerPoint, if anyone would like, maybe I can put it on the Learning Hub or something. If you guys would like to see it. All the references are there at the end. But I found that these stages were really helpful for me to see this is normal. It's not like, like not to get upset and it's not necessarily anybody's fault or anything, but that it's a normal stage of collaboration process that we need to understand.
Quick question for you, David.
Yeah.
Is this talking about enforced collaboration? Yes. Somebody from above saying, you people must get together and do that. That's what he's talking about?
Great question. To be honest, I'd have to go back and look at his research because I know it was part of a curriculum change in the school. That's all I can recall about that. So
that sounds enforced.
So it sounds like maybe that was, the school was doing it, they had to do it. Now, however, how much of that came from the ground up? Not sure, because it's kind of like,
Is it possible to just start at stage 5?
Yeah.
Like if you have two people with initiative that just begin talking about something and then they're on fire together and things happen.
That's
not have all the other stages.
That's right. Like
an organic collaboration.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it may be like people that have been working together in the same school for like several years, and so they already have developed some things in terms of trust and so on. So yeah, you could there could be an entry point in any of these stages, right? Yeah.
Yeah, David, judging from the stages that he mentions, it is very similar to a change process. So I think this would be more of a post of the change. Initially, the first reaction is total rejection.
Yeah.
And eventually, if there's a comment by a teacher saying, no, I know a better way of doing this, they're in a much higher stage. So it's very similar to that in the change process. I think that initially it's a change and you fear it, you don't want it, so you kind of freak out. But there's no reason I would mention it comes from the teachers themselves rather than the top bottom, that they can just transfer into this.
Yeah. That's a really great point.
That just throw in something that, I've seen great collaboration happen in bits, but if it doesn't work with the larger picture, then it goes nowhere and people get frustrated. And I think there needs to be a sense of why, and there needs to be, like you talked about, for example, getting data. So at the outset, with that grant, part of that had been, you had to support institutional research and so on and so forth, to support you in that.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this? So it's not just that it's top down versus, people working together, but there needs to be that alignment where you've got something where you're going to get support right through the organization. And it should be something, I want to work on that. It shouldn't be a matter of either or.
Right.
Because that really good stuff will fizzle and it just stays down the line because it doesn't plug into anything else.
Right.
In the institution.
Yeah. Great points. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to go on and talk about that in the last part of the talk, also that this need for that support. Yeah. So I wanted to ask just kind of the whole group here. What do you think?
I think there's some amazing stuff going on. It's just finding out what it is. There's just tremendous pockets that I hear about. I go, wow, I had no idea that was going on.
Yeah.
Tremendous stuff, but it's sort of ad hoc.
But
I also some amazing non-stuff going on.
Yes, that's right.
non-stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Did you say?
Stage one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been stage one for 20 years. And no change.
I just had this, I had an idea when you're saying that, like, it's almost, wouldn't it be great to have some kind of a website, BCIT, where it's like, people are posting what we're doing, right? Like the
The
different
presidential
things.
forums often feature that kind of stuff, and I'll go and go, wow, what's going on, it's amazing, because I think the culture is not particularly interdisciplinary as a whole, but there's pockets that should be fanned and celebrated and grown,
Yeah.
and, you know, that it's really exciting stuff to see.
And that gets back to that earlier slide about where, you know, teaching, we could say, but it could be any department, but not just teaching. It's a kind of the idea of the same as research. We can learn from each other. We need to learn from each other, right? And different projects. Okay, so what stage is your own department at? Just something to think about. Okay, are you a silo, or is your silo door opening, and so on? And then what stage are you at personally? Okay, so just some things to kind of think about. I do have a handout of those collaboration stages I can give you guys at the end if you're interested. And just to gonna draw in near the end here. So this is kind of getting back to some of the points that we were sort of hinting at, is the need for support, okay? It coming from the institution, we can also say from the department. And I think for my project, one of the things that I failed to do that I should have done is gone to like a day one computing department meeting, right? Say, hey guys, you know, instead of just doing that thing kind of on the side. So anyway, so first of all, for students, now keep in mind I'm talking about international students. So I think that if BCIT has accepted an international student into a follow-up program, that means that there is support. There should be support for that student, okay, either beforehand or during their program. And I think part of that support involves collaboration, okay? Set them up for success. And part of the reason this project started originally was in order to help students succeed. And then, okay, it also could apply between, if you think, between two programs within BCIT working together, okay? Like two major follow-up programs. Now, what about for instructors? So instructors who are working there on the ground level, and as Jen was saying, like the projects might fizzle out, right? Which is a shame, but it's actually heartbreaking, really, it is. That they put a lot of passion, but it would fizzle because they didn't have the support. So instructors need to be supported, and I found this resource, it's pretty cool. This is actually someone from Quebec who did his thesis, and someone had fortunately translated. I looked at his thesis, but I don't speak French, so I don't read French, so, but unfortunately someone had translated this table. So what he was saying is that, and this could be between an instructor and their department, or the instructor and the institution, or the department and the institution. Okay, if that makes sense. And there's a need for a relationship type of thing. We share the goal. Our goals are supported. We have this great collaboration idea. We have the support from the institution. So there's the relational aspect and a sense of growing trust. I think you can't have successful collaboration without trust. And mutual knowledge, sharing of knowledge. But also there's the kind of, what do you call it? The organizational things. What do you call this? Really? So organizational things, right? So in BCIT, that could be some of the things I mentioned before, having the release time and so on. Being aware of what does it take in order to do the collaboration. It's not enough to have an idea, really. It's like, I mean, that's the genesis, right? But the structures and support have to be there. And that may be different for each of you or for each department, right? Personally, in ISEP, as a PTS program, I wish I had more PD. I wish I had the full-time instructors regular PD benefits to do collaboration stuff. I do think grants are great, but I think for long-term stuff, we need something that's more long-term and embedded. So just to sort of the last thing I wanted to say, I started to think just generally, what would that look like maybe for ISEP, collaborating with a follow-up program and trying to do it in a bit more thought-out way. The first thing I think we need to do is set foundations for it. So, for example, what are the purposes for collaboration? Is there a real need? Is it filling a real need? someone mentioned organic. It might grow from what I call hallway discussions. And then what is the structure required? So how much time is required? What's it gonna look like? Meetings and so on. And then who are the relevant instructors or other faculty? Program assistants I found in the project I did were amazing. They were so helpful, they went like the extra mile, I say. Yeah, so very important. Who is needed to do the collaboration? And then finally getting buy-in from any relevant stakeholders. And this could possibly come before, at the beginning, before you decide who you actually need. And then going on to like doing the actual work. So doing a needs assessment before it's done. So what exactly is needed? Getting the data or the feedback or interviews from whatever you need in order to do a well thought out collaboration. Going to a day one meeting if there is. In my case, if it was working with a competing department, that would be very appropriate to meet everyone and to say, hey guys, like we're doing this project, so they could all be aware of it and they maybe even want to contribute to it. And then doing again, in my case, it would have been a pilot collaboration project where it would have been tried, evaluated, and changed and made better and so on. And then meeting regularly with whoever the important stakeholders are. Then finally evaluating. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Evaluating the project, how did it go? And then making any changes. Okay? So in my case, this would be appropriate because it's a course. The collaboration project was a course. So it might not follow this exactly same steps for your particular collaboration projects, but these were some of the steps that I noticed would be helpful. Okay, so one thing that may be important is how do you initiate a collaboration? When you've got this little ball or whatever, like from that other slide, how do you get the ball, literally get the ball rolling? So this was something I found for someone who was doing research on language teachers trying to link with follow-up programs. And this was something that the language teacher could give to the follow-up program instructor and say, what are the students' needs in these areas? So what are the actual reading skills and writing skills and so on? In the school, in the workplace, and then in the wider society. And a simple thing like this could be a good tool to just get the ball rolling, get a discussion started, right? Okay. And then finally, just to conclude, so why bother? Well, I think that with the support of the Institute, I think it's very important, especially since BCIT has said this is a goal. For example, these things that are mentioned in the brackets, collaboration will benefit students, teachers, and the institution. I think that's the bottom line, right? Is that's why we want to collaborate. And I think there's a lot of passionate, obviously, here, right, and outside this room, a lot of passionate individuals with skills and knowledge to share. They want to share, they know they have something valuable. So I think that in BCIT, lots of good stuff going on in the hallways, we say, or private meetings, but I think to move it on to the department meeting level for awareness and to administration and to get that support, I think is really important so that things don't fizzle, but they can kind of blossom, right? And I think that's about it. Yeah. So, does anyone have any last thoughts or questions or?
That's great. One thing that I was thinking as you were talking was the education plan, the academic plan is about to be released. And I think an important thing is, again, to align these initiatives with, say, an academic plan, a strategic plan. So, I think that that's an important part of this as well. It can be in and of itself very worthwhile, but if it's not linked to that academic plan, I think it's not as powerful. And then that's also supported by a business plan, so it's resourced over a 3-year period.
So who's academic? Do you mean
Well, I
at the
think Tom said
department
this
level,
morning,
or?
wasn't it next week they're releasing the education plan?
Okay, so
Right,
institute.
that would be the result of the ed talks and so on and so forth, but that should be a guiding document,
Yeah.
which we should be, all of us should be kind of looking at that, and I'm assuming interdisciplinary is going to be a part of it, because it was a big part of the ed talk, so interdisciplinarity is something that should be incentivized. So
Yes.
if you have a collaboration idea, if it's interdisciplinary and it's working within the parameters of that education plan,
Yeah,
I would think it would make it a more powerful, it's more likely to see through to bear fruit rather than just being something, well, that was very nice, David, thanks for coming out.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
just,
yeah, they,
so just going beyond the department of just knowing that it links all the way through.
right, yeah. So we can, I guess this could be like, say,
It's
institute.
a man, it just doesn't
Institute, yeah.
emphasize that point.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point, and just the idea that the stuff that is going on the ground level is really valuable a lot of times, like, and it's getting it out there, right? I think that's part of the thing is that people just don't know, right? They don't know what's going on, or it stays at this sort of support level. So, yeah. All right, well, good. I guess we'll run into 3. There, so thank